Everyone, if I could have you take a seat, we're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. Okay, for those of you that I haven't met, I'm Warren Kister. I'm director of the Hart Career Center here at Wesleyan University. Very pleased to see you venture out on a cold night. Hopefully the coffee will keep you warm. On behalf of our office and our co-sponsors, I'd like to welcome you tonight. Co-sponsoring this event with the Career Center are Alpha Kappa Psi, the American Marketing Association, and the Economic Society. So we're very grateful for their support, and they do have some information about their organizations over on the table, so please pick that up. I've noticed that some of our organizations could benefit from a few more members, so I would encourage you to think about whether that fits into your schedule. I'd also like to very briefly mention that we have two new staff members at the Hart Career Center. I see him in the back of the room there, but Brian Richardson is our new Assistant Director for Career Engagement, which translates to you as the individual that coordinates our internship program. And then, there you go. Brian is also an Illinois Wesleyan alum from the class of 2009. And then over here at the registration table is our newest staff member, Jennifer Jordan. Jennifer's our office coordinator, which translates for us as the person who keeps us all in line. Abby is our cheering section. Okay, and at this time, what I'd like to do, very, very thrilled to introduce this evening's speaker. We typically have a kickoff event, whether it's a panel, whether it's an individual speaker, each semester. And many of you know how important I feel it is to help you connect with our successful alumni. There's a number of ways to do that, but certainly one of those is to have those alumni return to campus, return to their roots, and have a chance to speak to you about their success and for you to have an opportunity to ask questions. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jaynanne Calaway-Habeck from the class of '99. Jaynanne is the Vice President of People Operations at Panera Bread. As a student, there are always those students that I remember. This is my 23rd year, and I think back very fondly on some students that I've worked with. Jaynanne was one of those superstars who, the only thing I can say that's negative is she just made my life hard, because she did so darn much that she would come in and we'd try to figure out how we were going to get that down on paper, and somehow we did, and despite that, she has moved on to great success. As a student here, Jaynanne completed a triple program in economics, finance, and international relations. She also managed to participate in the Pembroke program and graduate summa cum laude. She followed this up with a master's degree in human resources and industrial relations from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign in 2000. Let me tell you just a little bit about her employment background. You have a copy of the program, but Jaynanne leads Paneras Human Resources organization that supports a variety of their operations. A few highlights: she started with Panera in 2003 as Human Resources Manager and served in a number of capacities over the years. In 2012, Jaynanne was promoted to Vice President of Retail Human Resources, and in 2015, she took on the role of Vice President, Total Rewards, where she led system-wide strategies and execution of compensation and benefit programs, as well as human resources technology and human resources projects. Her current position, which she assumed in 2016, is the role of Vice President for People Operations. On a more personal note, faith and family summarize her involvement outside of work. Jaynanne has been married for 13 years and has 2 wonderful daughters, 9-year-old Becca and 4-year-old Jaren. She has a passion for service and is active with an organization called Refuge, which provides free counseling services to children who have been the victims of trauma. She's also heavily involved in her church, where she's the director of spiritual life and oversees worship and prayer ministries. If her name sounds a little familiar to you, it might be because her brother, Jared, also an Illinois Wesleyan alum, is currently a faculty member in our religion program. So please join me at this time in extending a warm Titan welcome to Jaynanne Calaway-Habeck.
All right, I'm not really a stand behind a podium kind of person, so I'm going to take this off. Thank you very much for having me. How many of you are required to be here? You're getting extra credit for a class? Yes? Oh, professors, you're so funny. It is awesome to be back on campus. This place holds amazing memories for me. It's a little bit surreal, a little bit emotional. I did come back over Thanksgiving because my brother lives in one of those houses over there and he's teaching here right now. And we walked around campus and he showed me what I call the new buildings. I think some of them are almost 20 years old now, but they're new since I was here, and that was fantastic. So it's wonderful to be back, and thank you so much for having me. Warren asked me to talk about career advice and how to have a breakthrough career, and I started thinking about all the people that I've seen come and go at Panera, come and go at other places, and what were the themes of people who were able to break through those career plateaus and make a real impact on the businesses they were in, the organizations they were in. I even thought about my church that I'm really involved in. And I think some of this might be non-traditional advice. I don't know, some other people may not agree with it, but it's my perspective and it's my experience, so I'll share it tonight, and hopefully there's something in here that's meaningful. I really prefer usually a discussion, not a one-way monologue, and so I do have prepared slides and materials, but I want you to please feel free to shout out a question, a comment, say that I'm full of crap, whatever, so that this is really more of a discussion and you get out of it what you want to get out of it, okay? So I'm going to start just by giving you a thumbnail sketch of what I've done. So I did graduate from Illinois Wesleyan, and I thought I was going to be an attorney because when you don't know what you want to do, you think maybe you'll go to law school. At least I did. But I didn't want to come out of law school with a ton of debt because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with a law degree. So that's why I decided on the University of Illinois, because I lived in Illinois, I could get in-state tuition. And then I think it was the Christmas break before I was going to graduate. I was back at a job that I had worked at the summer before in my local county government. I was researching the University of Illinois, and they had joint degree programs. You could get an MBA or something else, and then the third one was a master's in human resources. And I thought, oh, I loved my labor economics courses. Mike Seaborg is one of my favorite people on the planet. I had done my junior year abroad. I was in the first group that went to Pembroke, Oxford, and I studied with a labor economist over there, and I thought, oh, if I like labor economics so much, I'm sure I would like labor law and labor and employment law. So I went to the University of Illinois as a joint degree student for the graduate program, and then I will spare you all of the personal details why I woke up in the middle of the night one night and decided, I don't really want to be a lawyer. And so I dropped the JD before I even started it, called him the day before classes were supposed to start, and went into the master's program in human resources, and I have never looked back. That was one of the best decisions I ever made. And oh, by the way, that was a gut decision. It wasn't very well thought out, but I love human resources. It is this, I like to tell people my dad was a business owner, and my mom is a therapist, and human resources is the perfect combination of those two things. Even though I've never taken a single psychology course in my life, I did grow up with a therapist. And so HR is all about people, but it's also about knowing your business and adding value because you understand the business of your business. So I did a master's in HR, and oh, by the way, a little plug for the U of I, it's one of the best HR master's programs in the country. I also want to tell you this, because I was chatting earlier with somebody here on campus, and they asked me a question. I remembered one of the professors at the University of Illinois saying to me one time, he would take an Illinois Wesleyan alum any day of the week because of how well prepared Illinois Wesleyan alums are. So, kudos to you. You got that going for you. So I came out of my master's program, and Warren talked about the two guiding forces in my life are faith and family. And I'm from the St. Louis area, and so I decided I didn't want to go. I had lived abroad for a year, and I had done that, and I wanted to stick closer to my parents, to put down my own roots. And so the best job offer I got in the St. Louis area was with Towers Perrin, one of the leading HR consulting firms. Now they've gone through all sorts of mergers. I think they're called Towers Watson at the moment. So that was one of the best things I also could have done, to set me up to have a broad perspective on a lot of different industries, working with a lot of different businesses, a lot of different personalities in my client base. In fact, when I think back to my liberal arts education at Illinois Wesleyan, my master's degree program that was interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, and then going into consulting, those three things were all foundations to give a very broad perspective going into a business, which probably helped me now that I've been in one company, one industry for the last 15 years. Sometimes I worry that I get a little siloed and get a little like, oh, this is all I know is Panera Bread. But that liberal arts education, a strategic graduate program, and then going into consulting, I think have helped me in the last 15 years be able to pull up out of that and constantly ask questions and challenge the status quo of what we're doing. Tucker Consultants, my boss at Towers Perrin decided to go out on her own. Her name's Sherry Tucker. She created her own consulting firm, and she asked me to go with her. And so for 3 years, it was a 2-woman show. We had, as our clients, some of the biggest companies in St. Louis and Kansas City, a couple in some other cities. She's the one who made the decision that she was tired of what she called pounding the pavement and selling her wares as an independent consultant, always trying to get the next gig, the next project, the next piece of income for us. And so, to make a long story short, she got a job at Panera. They interviewed me too, decided to hire me too. 3 weeks into it, she decided she really liked being her own boss better. She left and I stayed. And I stayed, and I stayed, and I stayed. So I didn't pick Panera. She actually picked Panera. I went with her, and it's been an amazing fit. When I was sitting in your chair at your age, if you would have asked me what industry I might go into, I don't think the restaurant industry would have even been a blip on my radar. But it is fun. It's gritty. It's real. People have to eat. Everybody knows what we do. When I meet people and I tell them I work at Panera, they want to tell me their favorite food and the last experience that they had and what their home bakery cafe is. So it's planning is important, but also being open to the opportunities that come your way and keeping your eyes wide open to them is really important. Okay, so like I said, my advice is probably going to be a little non-traditional. This is not 100%, this is not research-based. I didn't go back and calculate statistics. Sorry, Dr. Leakley. But this is my experience based on observing other people. The other thing I did was I have a team of amazing HR directors. And so I sent out an email and I said, hey, I'm going to do this talk at my alma mater. What advice should I give all of these folks who are getting ready to go out into the real world? And so I have some quotes scattered in here too. And I just got one 20 minutes ago, and it's really good. So at some point I'm going to go down to my phone and get it out and read it to you. All right, so here's number one. This is what I tell every single new person at Panera, every single person that I coach and mentor. I probably say this 10 times a day. Relationships, relationships, relationships. This is a picture of my grandmother, who just passed away this last year. She was an ordained minister. She was what they would call a pastor's wife for most of her life, and then my grandfather passed away and she became a minister in her own right. This is my mother, therapist, everything extraordinaire, me, and my oldest, back up. So I think one of our former presidents of the United States actually said this first. I don't remember which one it was. The first person who ever said it to me was my grandmother. She said, Jaynanne, and this was when I was starting my job at Panera. She said, Jaynanne, don't ever forget, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. The number one mistake that new people make at Panera is they think they need to prove to us that we made the right decision in hiring them. The number one thing that they can do is sit back and listen and learn and get to know people and let people get to know them so that people see their heart, so that people see that they have the best intentions. That opens the door to have influence and real conversations. So this is my number one piece of advice, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, is be real, be yourself, let people see who you really are, and that will grease the wheels for everything else. And so not surprisingly, when I solicited advice from my HR directors, lots of the advice came back in this bucket. So my director of HR technology, Courtney Higgins, who's been with Panera over 20 years, said focus on building relationships because they are the currency you'll need to get things done later. So what she's saying is build the relationship before you need it. Leanne, my director of HR for all the bakery cafes, so all the HR managers in the field report to her, said take time to connect with people even if you think you don't have time. If you want collaboration, you have to build connection. All right, my second piece of advice is throw out the idea that there's any such thing as work-life balance, because there's not. On any given day, you're going to put something before something else. On any given day, your work might be the priority, or your family might be the priority, or for me, my church might be the priority. On Sunday mornings, I don't look at my email, I don't answer my phone, because I'm leading worship. That's what I'm focused on. At other times during the week, I don't answer my texts from the worship team, because I'm focused on Panera. But then there are many days where I'm doing it all at the same time and trying to make it all work, because there's, something that needs to be done. So I like to call it work-life integration, that I'm figuring out how to put it all together in the way that's what I need and that's unique to me and what I'm trying to accomplish, and not what everybody else thinks I need to be accomplishing. How many of you are familiar with the Stephen Covey analogy about the rocks in the jar? Have you heard that before? Yeah? So, what do you put in first to the jar? The big rocks. And what are the big rocks? Family. By the way, there's no right answer. It's whatever the big rocks are for you. The must get done. The must get done. So for me, the big rocks are family time, whatever's important to my family, Panera, what the most important things are that I'm trying to drive there, and then also the commitments that I've made in my church. Then, and I don't remember all the different steps in this analogy, but basically it's the big rocks, and then the little rocks, and then the gravel, and then the sand, and then the water. It's very easy on a day-to-day basis to let the urgent but unimportant take over. Knowing what's important will help you weed through the noise of the urgent but unimportant. Sometimes you got to do that stuff. But for the most part, stay focused on what's actually going to matter. So in the course of a day at Panera, oh gosh, I would say I have 2,000 unread emails in my inbox right now. But I have my inbox set up so that if something comes in from my team, from my boss, or I have certain words flagged, the word union, I'm going to read those. I'm not going to read all the other 2,000. Eventually, I might. Occasionally, my assistant scans them to make sure I didn't miss anything important, but I can't read every email that comes in. That'll suck up my whole day. In my personal email box, oh my gosh, I haven't cleaned that out in 10 years. I don't even know how many emails are in there. I rarely look at that. But how many of you look at personal email anymore? Is that really a thing anymore? I don't know. It is? I thought everybody texted these days. Okay, moving on. My third piece of advice I stole directly from our outgoing CEO, our founder, Ron Shake. He pulled me aside one time and said, Jaynanne, I'm going to give you some advice because you need it right now because you're getting distracted. He said, be long-term greedy, not short-term greedy. That's how he's always run our business, and that was his advice for my career. As I was thinking about this talk, I remembered a story that my grandfather used to tell. Grandfather on the other side of my family. All four of my grandparents were ordained ministers, men and the women. So my Papa Calaway used to tell a story a lot in his sermons about picking blackberries with his mom. And he said that when he was younger, they would go out to the patch of blackberry bushes and they would each have a bucket, and he would run from bush to bush to bush trying to find the biggest blackberries. And then his mom would call him and say, okay, it's time to go. And he'd look in his bucket and it was maybe a third of the way full. He'd say, we haven't finished filling our buckets. And she said, well, I filled my bucket. Because she would sit at one bush and just pick and pick and pick and pick. She wasn't running to the next biggest thing. And she filled her bucket every time. And it made me think about the advice that Ron Shake had given me one day when he realized I was getting distracted by my short-term promotion goals. And he said, be long-term greedy, which is going to fit in with some other pieces that I have in here later, so I'm not going to jump ahead. But the piece that I added here is think of your career in terms of what skills are you building, what experiences are you building, what foundation are you building that's going to help you later, as opposed to climbing the ladder as fast as you can. You might be able to get a lot of promotions early on, but if you aren't actually building skills and broad experiences, you'll probably stall later in your career and won't be able to go much farther. It's a lot harder in the corporate world. It's a lot harder for a VP to transfer around across the business than it is for somebody who's younger in their career, because a lot more is expected of a VP. But if you have a VP who's done a lot of different things when they were earlier in their career, then they are a lot more flexible to go across and up at that point. This is actually a direct quote. I'm not going to name her, but from somebody on my team who for years said to me, I want to be on the fast track. I want to be on the fast track. And I never actually said this back to her, but finally one day she came in and she said, I get it now. There is no fast track. Because there's no way to really, really quickly get broad and deep experiences. It takes time. That said, I don't want to lose sight of the traditional advice of having goals and writing them down and having a plan, because that's actually really, really powerful. If you sit down and you write it down and you keep it in front of you, you are far more likely to accomplish it. I can't remember the research. It's like crazy, 100,000 times more likely to accomplish it if you write it down. My suggestion in that is be resolute on the end goal you're trying to achieve, but be flexible in how you get there. I do suggest that people do that at least twice a year. And during that time, sit down and reflect. I actually, for my team, I blew up performance reviews years ago, the traditional ones. And I make them answer questions like, in the last 6 months, what accomplishment are you most proud of? In the last 6 months, what regrets do you have? What do you wish would have gone a little faster and a little further and gotten better results? What do you need from me going forward? And what about yourself do you want to change in the next 6 months? And I ask them to pick one thing, because if you pick 10, you're probably not going to do it. And then what do you want to learn? Who do you want to learn it from? And make it happen. Make the meeting. Put it on the calendar. Tell them what it is you want to learn from them. What do you need? All right. Have a brand. All right. What brand is this? Apple. Okay. What do you think of when you think of Apple? If somebody said something funny, I didn't hear it. I see people laughing. Open place? Overpriced. That's fair. That's fair. That actually is a little bit a part of the brand. Who are the Mac users in here? Okay, Mac users. What do you think of when you think of Apple? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak up. Oh no! Her Mac crashed. Good quality. How old was it? No, I'm kidding. good quality. How about innovation? Do you think of innovation? Yeah. Do you think of, how many of you actually have gone into an Apple retail store? What's that experience like? Okay, it's supposed to be special. Okay, maybe this wasn't the best example. This is funny. Okay, but this is actually all real. Because you guys' experience is not what they want it to be. It's not the brand they're going for. So this isn't the answers I was expecting, but this is really good. Because people are going to have something that they think of when they think of you. What is it you want them to think of when they think of you? And then curate those experiences for people when they're with you, but make sure it's real. People can tell when it's not real. I can smell a fake a mile away. So, do you want people to think you're funny? Is that what's important to you? Do you want people to think you're smart? Do you want people to think you're authentic? Be very intentional about knowing what it is you want people to think about you. And then give them that experience. Making sure it's real. Also, no one cares about your career more than you do. A lot of people are sitting back waiting for somebody else to make it happen for them, expecting their boss to create their career plan, their development plan. If it is to be, it's up to me. Nobody's going to care about my career more than I do. So take initiative, raise your hand, don't wait for someone else to develop you. Ask people. If you want to learn from somebody who's really great at X, Y, and Z, go tell them, I want to learn from you. They will be thrilled. It'll stroke their ego, and they're going to want to help you. Just ask. All right. One of the things that is unique about Panera's culture, not unique only to Panera, but I think unique compared to a lot of other corporations, is that we talk a lot about taking our work seriously, but not ourselves. And we try to make sure that everybody, all the executives, are accessible and approachable. We have something that we call bread bashes. So we do them in the cafes 5 times a year whenever you see us have menu changes. We've just done a bread bash to teach and train all of the associates on how to make that new product. Well, we do bread bashes in the support centers too. It's a little bit more of a business update. We let them know what changes are happening in the cafes, but we're not training them on every step of how to make it. So at the bread bashes, something that was in place when I started 15 years ago, and we worked really hard to maintain, is we always have a moment where the executives are making fun of themselves in some way that helps us stay approachable and accessible. So this is from our last bread bash.
So Jaynanne, can I give you just a little bit of advice?
Please.
You really should dress for the job you want, not the one that you have.
Hey guys, are you ready to talk about recruiting? That was my director of recruiting. They had no idea that I had just put that get-up on, and I walked into her office, and obviously she didn't even know what to say. And then at the beginning of that, the guy that was on the video with me, that's Blaine, our new CEO, my boss. So I gave him the script and told him what to say. But every executive did something like that. The theme of the bread bash was superheroes, and we were asked as a senior leadership team to make a funny video about our favorite superhero. So of course I picked Wonder Woman because, right? I'm not gonna go be Superman. So anyway, that's about taking your work seriously, but not yourself. And now you can think less of me after seeing me in a Wonder Woman costume. All right, which leads into a discussion about culture. Pay very close attention to the culture of the organization that you're joining. My mom, when I was telling her about some pieces of this presentation, she reminded me of how I picked a college. I had it down to, I think, 5 my senior year of high school, and she told me that I needed to go sit on the quad of each campus and pay attention to who was there and how they were interacting with each other and the feel of the campus. And that's how I chose Illinois Wesleyan. The same is true for choosing a job. Make sure that that's a place that you're gonna actually wanna go every day, where you're gonna have fun, where you're gonna be inspired, where you're gonna be passionate. Because the job you're going into is important, but the company you're working for, the organization you're working for, what they stand for, all the people that you're gonna be around all day long. I mean, I'm with my coworkers more than I'm with my family most days. So it's really important, the company culture. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not gonna be a good fit. Panera is truly the best place I've ever worked, and we hear that a lot from our people. And whenever we ask them why, the number one answer is always the people they get to work with and the customers that they get to serve. Having great people is at the core of our business. We're looking for people who are real, who are friendly, and who truly love being a part of a team and serving our customers. I've been with Panera over 11 years, and one of the awesome things about Panera is as the company continues to grow, we have more career opportunities for every individual. You can start as an associate, a cashier, in the dining room, behind the line, or you can be a baker, work in our catering business, or a driver, and then grow your career from there. Some of our executive vice presidents started as an associate. I love Panera because I get to be myself. I'm the same person at work that I am at home. Panera cares about me and my family, and that makes me want to give Panera my best. So this is a recruiting video that we made about 4 years ago, and we still use it in, particularly we're doing a lot of targeted recruiting events to bring a lot of drivers on board for our new delivery business. Have any of you experienced our delivery business? Has anybody ordered delivery? Is it here yet? It may not be here. Okay, well, it's fantastic. It's really the best thing. It should be coming. If it's not here, it's probably coming this quarter because I just hired 50 recruiters to staff up the rest of our company markets, and this is a company market. So we're hiring between 10 and 15 drivers in every bakery cafe, and that's actually why we made this video, is we started testing our delivery business 4 years ago, and that's really what differentiates us as an employer, is our culture. It's the number one reason people stay. It's far and away, or it's the number one reason people come. It's far and away the number one reason people stay, is our company culture. So that's why I showed that video. All right. So this is, I do a lot of group mentoring at Panera, and I usually make sure that this is in the first couple of sessions, is about knowing the business and then making all of your decisions through the lens of what's best for the business, not what's best for yourself. It's the number one way to lose personal credibility, going back to the personal brand, is when people see that you're recommending something because it's gonna help you, or even that it's gonna help your specific team, versus that it's gonna help the organization overall. And ultimately help the customer. If we're making our customers' lives better, then that benefits everyone. What's the saying? A rising tide raises all boats, or something like that. That goes along. I like to call it the circle of me versus making decisions and having conversations in the circle of we. But you can't do that if you don't know what's best for the overall organization. So you have to know your business. All right. So those are my advice. The next couple of slides are advice that I got from our CEO, Blaine, who you saw in the video telling me to trust for the job that I want, not the job that I have. Which, by the way, I told him to say, so he's not a jerk. So these are the 5 pieces of advice he wanted me to share. The first one is to have a bias towards action. Indira Gandhi said, let's see something happen now. You can break that big plan into small steps and take the first step right away. This is his definition that I think he probably got from Franklin Covey on a bias for action and what that means. He talks a lot about taking risks, but taking calculated risks. So we would never move forward as a business if we didn't take risks, but we have our own internal yardstick of we need to have 80% confidence that it's gonna work. Don't wait until you know all the answers. There's always gonna be one more piece of analysis that you can do. 80-20 rule. Do 80% of it and make the decision based off of that. Break a big goal into small steps. Move forward even when you're scared to death to do it. Do something rather than doing nothing. And you can turn your dream into reality bit by bit. A bias for action is not reckless abandon, merely talking, merely thinking, inertia, only dreaming, or perfection. I like to say Panera beat perfection out of me. Because you can't move forward if you need perfection. His second piece of advice was hire and develop great people. Attila the Hun, I don't know where he got this, but he says that Attila the Hun said that he was successful because he surrounded himself with strong Huns. And that a king with chieftains who always agrees with her reaps the counsel of mediocrity. Hire really smart people. People asked me before, what do you look for in a team member, somebody who's going to report to you? And I said, somebody smarter than I am. Expect more from your team than even they can believe they will deliver, and they will deliver more than you expect. Insist on the highest standards. Most people don't like high standards because they create a lot of work, especially the kind of work that nobody likes, the do it over again kind. Setting high standards will make you a somewhat disliked boss and leader. Enforcing high standards will make you positively despised. His next one is have a maniacal obsession with serving our customers. Lead your team with passion. All right, this is my last slide. Always remember why you do what you do. For me, it's faith and family. This first picture is my family. And I'll tell you when we took this picture. So my husband's a dentist, and in his spare time, he teaches at the dental clinic at the local community college. He does that on Thursday evenings. This was a week when I traveled Monday through Thursday. I got back Thursday afternoon. I hadn't seen him since Sunday night. And he gets a break around 7 p.m. on Thursdays when he's overseeing that dental lab. So the girls and I packed up a picnic dinner, and we went and had dinner with him on the campus because that was the time when we could see each other. This goes back to the work-life integration. This picture on the right is makes me want to cry. I'm very proud of these people. This is my choir at my church. And, these people, they love other people and they love God and they give up their time and they're amazing people, and I am honored and humbled to be able to work with them and lead them. So remember why you do what you do, because if you lose sight of that, you probably lost sight of yourself. That's it. So, what questions do you have? Yes? Yeah, okay, so what were some of the extracurriculars that I did here? I gotta think about that. That was a long time ago. So I actually came on a music scholarship. So I sang in choirs, which I think helped me with what I'm doing now. I was very involved in the economics department, very involved. I'm sure I did something with the Park Place economist. I worked in the department. I was a research assistant. That's right. What was the second one? Research honor. Oh, that's right. I did. I did a lot of econ research. I was in the Economic Society. I know there's more. I was in Chi Alpha, which was a Christian organization. Warren, you did my resume. What else did I do? All 3 pages of it. I don't even remember. That was 20 years ago, people. I was in a lot of different organizations that I don't even remember. But I will tell you, I didn't join organizations to put it on my resume. I joined it because I was interested in it. What else? Yes? I did. Yep. Because I had no flippin' idea what I was going to do. He asked me why did I go straight into grad school. I had no idea what I was going to do. That's an honest answer. I do know there are some graduate programs where it's really better to get some experience first. Like most MBA programs won't even accept you if you don't have work experience. Nolan. What made me decide to take up different opportunities in Panera? Most of the time I was tapped on the shoulder. I am trying to think if I ever well, first of all, until I took the VP of Retail HR job, every job I had, I was the first person in it. So they were creating jobs for me and around me, but also because the business was evolving. So a lot of people ask me, why have you stayed at Panera 15 years? And my answer is because as our business evolves, every single job and every single person in Panera has to evolve. There's no such thing as complacency at Panera. And so for the first, what would that be now? 8-9 years of my career at Panera, nobody else had been in that job before. But basically, they just kept giving me more work, and then they'd decide, oh, maybe we should give her a different title. The VP of Retail HR job, the woman was retiring. I was interested in it, but somebody else actually recommended me for it. And so I went, that was the first job I ever went through full interview process with all the senior vice presidents of operations and everybody to make sure they were all comfortable with me. And when I took that job, I spent the first 2 months solid traveling and getting out into the cafes. Becca was 1 year old, so that was, I went into it knowing full well that was a trade-off I was making for the short term, for the sake of the long term. Yeah, I mean, I came home on the weekends, but that was a big step function change in my career at Panera, was taking that job. Since then, it's been people tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, we want you to go do this. And I go, okay. Yep. Is there anything I regret doing or not doing with my career? Regret's a little bit of a strong word, but the answer I just gave to Nolan is probably not the advice I would give most people. So while I don't personally have any regrets, I think I've ended up where I needed to end up. It is absolutely okay and advisable to raise your hand and express a job that you're interested in. But do it from the standpoint of an experience that you want to gain, as well as what you think you bring to the table for that job, as opposed to, I just want more money and a bigger title. Yes. What challenges did I face when I took on positions no one ever had before? I was defining my job while I was trying to do my job. Yeah, it's an interesting place for somebody in their 20s without a lot of experience to be defining what is it I should be focused on that will add the most value to the business, and then go get it done. And for the first couple of years, I didn't have a team. I was an individual contributor, so defining it and then going and doing it all myself. That's hard. I learned a lot. What else? How about the peanut gallery? I can't actually see you very well because I have a really bright light right there. No questions? Warren. Okay, so I have two different answers. I feel like you asked me a couple different questions. So let me actually tackle the authenticity part first. My new boss, Blaine, kept talking about the Pittsburgh rule. Finally, I was like, Blaine, what the hell is the Pittsburgh rule? He lived in Louisville for years and years and years. And so the Pittsburgh rule, and this goes back to 5 companies ago for him, was when he interviewed a person, is this someone he would want to spend, it's probably about 6 hours from Louisville to Pittsburgh. Is this someone he would want to spend 6 hours with in the car, traveling from Louisville to Pittsburgh? And if the answer was no, he didn't hire them. So that is a lesson on just be yourself, because people don't want to spend 6 hours with you if you're fake. Be real. Laugh, make fun of yourself, ask other people a lot of questions about them. It's a great way to get people to like you. Second part of your question was about fast pace. Say that part again. That's an interesting question. Because I think in some ways, none of us have any idea what it's going to look like 5 years from now, maybe even 2 years from now. There's this great quote, the pace of change has never been this fast, and it will never be this slow again. Does anybody know who said that? The CEO of IBM in the 1960s. And he couldn't have even fathomed where we are today. And it just keeps accelerating. So I think staying abreast, first of all, of what's going on and how that impacts whatever business, organization, field you end up going into is great advice. I will say I'm not very good at that. I rely on other people on my team to do that. I think the scariest part of technology today is how much information is available about us via social media. How many of you frequently Google your own name? You need to, because you need to know what's out there. I do it once every couple months, just to make sure there's not some crazy person using my name and putting something out there, because even though there's some litigation around it, employers do it, recruiters do it. They're Googling you, they're looking to see, what is your brand out there in the world. So to me, that's the scary part, is thank God there was no such things as selfies and Facebook when I was your age. That would not have been a good thing. Right, Miss Deva? This is one of my buddies from my college days. Did that answer your question? Okay. What else? Yes! Yep. 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 Yep, just had to take a meeting today on that. What motivates managers? So he said, yeah. So in general, what I've learned about pay is that you have to be in the ballpark. Like, people don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of. They want to feel valued. But once you're in, as an employer, once we're in the ballpark, what really matters is, and it does vary by individual. So I'm about to make a sweeping, broad statement, but really every single person has a different motivator in their life. Once you're in the ballpark for pay and people feel like it's fair, they need to feel like it's fair, then it's about the work that they're doing and the experience that they have coming into work every day and feeling like they're making a difference and that they're valued. And that's true for the associates in our bakery cafes all the way up to our CEO. Now, specific to executive pay, I will say that the long-term incentive of building long-term economic value for the company is really important. Yes? Was it worth it for me to get a master's degree? Yes, for me personally, it was worth it because I would have never ended up in HR otherwise. in general, I think it was worth it. Yeah, I'm thinking about all of my friends and family and their careers, and I would say in almost every case, a graduate degree was worth it for them. It was beneficial. I mean, I'm sure there are professions and things I don't know that much about, but yeah. What are you thinking about? You want to be a lawyer? You definitely need a JD. I'm not making fun of you. I know that wasn't the spirit of your question. Yes. Yeah, so I don't have a blanket answer for you. But some things to think about. He asked, how do you know when to make a lateral move versus a promotion? Some things to think about are, will you have the opportunity to gain the types of experiences and skills in that that you would have gotten in that lateral if you do the promotion? Will you have another opportunity? And if not, is that something you really need and want? So what's an example? In HR, I probably didn't really need to work in benefits to do what I'm doing now. It really, really benefited me to have worked in compensation. In compensation, I needed to fully understand all the jobs. And if I understood the jobs, then I understood the business. And I understood how people were really adding value. And I understood the people side of the business. So that's an example of, I needed that comp experience in order to do a better job as an HR leader. I didn't really need to go deep into benefits. I'm giving you a very specific example that's specific to my career. And then on the flip side, if you turn down that promotion, is another one going to come along, and how quickly? If it's an opportunity to get experience leading teams and leading people, that's a pretty good thing. So there's not a one-size-fits-all answer to that. Okay, there's a question up there. Hi.
What are some struggles you face as like a woman in the corporate world?
So I'm pretty lucky. I work for a company that's inherently flexible. We had video conferencing when I started 15 years ago. I'm going to answer the question a little differently than you asked it, if that's okay. Okay? My advice to men and women is know what you need and negotiate it up front. So for example, I did go part-time after I had my first baby. And when they asked me to come back full-time, I said, okay, I'll do that. I live an hour away from the office. I said, I'll do that, but I want to work from home every Friday. That conversation happened 8 years ago. In the last 8 years, I've gone into the office 3 Fridays, including last Friday. But I negotiated that on the front end, and so I never had to feel guilty any Friday that I worked from home. I didn't have to beg, I didn't have to ask. It was the way that it was. Someone asked me right before this, how much do I travel? How much am I in the office? I travel about 25% of the time. I'm in the office about 50% of the time, and I work out of my home office using video conferencing equipment about 25% of the time. That's not every company culture is going to be able to support that. Part of why that works for me is that more than half my team is in the field. They're not in the office, so when I'm having meetings with them, I don't care if I'm on video from the office or on video from home. So the other piece of advice I will give is going back to there's no such thing as work-life balance. Know that there will be seasons to your life and seasons to your career. And sometimes you might make a decision like I did, I'm going to work part-time right now because that's what I personally need to do. Sometimes you might make a decision like I did, I can't do the math, however many years after that when I took the retail HR position. Okay, I'm taking this position, I know I'm going to be traveling nonstop for the next 2 months. Thank God I have a partner, he's my husband because he is this way, who is supportive of that. Yeah. And by the way, it is true that women tend to struggle with that challenge more than men, but increasingly men want the same things, they want the same flexibility, and they're actually more hesitant to ask for it. Don't be. You have as much right to be a parent and to participate in other parts of your life as women do. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you very much. This was a pleasure.
Let's give Jaynanne another round of applause. And for those of you that remained, we have our raffle, and I'm going to turn it over to my two capable colleagues here. We have Becky Menser, who's our career counselor, and Sarah Roth, who is joining us this semester as a practicum student from Illinois State University and will be with us throughout the spring term.
Thank you. Before we do the raffle, I have somebody's keys, and I can't tell whether you have a better car than me, so I will give the back. If you are Abigail, you keep your car. Okay, so we're going to draw a name out, and the first prize is a gift card to Portillo's. Olivia, hey, hey, yes. Yay. Hurts so much. Okay. Our next one is a gift card to Amazon. Becky Metzer. Five carrots. Pretty good. Last names. Okay, now we have, this is fun too. IWU. Yeah. Hey. Bill. Yeah. There you go. Okay, we're going to do the same prize again. Brianna Willow, maybe Williams, maybe. Brianna.
You also all get coffee for you. Grab some coffee, okay? This is your sample. That's your sample. She's coming.
Okay. And the next one goes to Stephanie. Her last name begins with a G. E. R. the next headband goes to Drew Hershey. Drew, yes. Now, how many of you will be doing on-campus interviews and borrow a portfolio? No. You're gonna win. Melanie. Pelc. Melanie? Not here. Must be present. Okay. Raymond Bolton. Raymond Bolton. Joshua Cook. This is a really good price. People stay. Abraham Hill. Abraham. Yes. And we have another portfolio for Rachel Replinger. Rachel? Move it up if you're here. Okay. Winona Asher. We have one more portfolio. And that's less price. But there's lots of coffee. If you really want someone to walk away with this coffee, you should drink coffee if you take it. But there's some back there too, okay? All right, so we have one last one. John Park. John. Yay! And you know what? We have pins, but you're just going to have to get here first on that.